On the edge of our planet lies a sleeping princess, a continent locked in deep blue. Terrifying yet wonderful, it lies in its frozen sleep, covered by layer upon layer of snow and ice, gleaming like amethysts and emeralds. Majestic, towering ice formations extend in every direction as far as the eye can see, and its horizons are coloured in pink, gold, green and blue tones and pastels. Such as Antarctica, the continent whose area is almost equal to that of South America, and whose inner regions are less known than the illuminated side of the moon, as was written in 1947 by the famous polar researcher Richard Byrd. Since then, people have learnt much about Antarctica, but the knowledge of most people is limited to penguins and icebergs. So to this very day, the feelings and sensations of a man who undertakes a journey to this place can be compared to the delight and amazement experienced by the original explorers of Antarctica. Here there is nothing that can remind you of the civilized world, and even the concept of silence attains a new meaning, as a human voice is something alien and foreign. Unusual topics of conversation here have little meaning. Exactly here, in silent contemplation, a thought can be born which then disappears with the birth of a word, as words can never be sufficient to describe such boundless beauty. "99% of the Antarctic continent is covered by ice, a vast kingdom of eternal winter. The snow melts only on the islands and the edge of the continents for 3 months at a time, enabling tourists to undertake trips which generally start in Argentina in the port of Ushuaia. Here tourist agencies specialise in journeys to the Antarctic on a variety of ships of differing comfort levels. The duration of a tour is from a week to 3 weeks, including excursions around the islands and around world-renowned scientific stations. Such pleasures cost from $3,000 a week to $1,000 a day, but it is possible to do it cheaper by yourself as a sailor. It's worth saying that in recent years it has become fashionable to travel to Antarctica in sailing boats from all around the world. More detailed, related information can be found on the internet in the travel section. One of the most interesting places of the Antarctic Peninsula is the arpeggio of Argentinian islands. The first people who travelled to Antarctica were scientists and travellers from Britain, Russia and America. These first visitors to the islands arrived at the end of the 19th century. However, the islands were named by the French expedition Charcot in 1903 as thanks for the support given to the expedition by the government of Argentina. The first construction of any kind appeared here during the British expedition in the area called Guayama at the beginning of the 1930s. Shortly after the first building was erected on the island, called Winter. In 1947, the English decided to build a complete year-round meteorological station on this island. However, having landed there at the end of January, no construction of any kind was found. Anyway, the first so-called winter dwellers there had to construct buildings out of local materials. Base F was designated for 4 to 6 winter dwellers. Up until 1953, people spent the winter there. Now the station is called Vordy House and for tourists serves as a perfectly preserved museum of the first English winter dwellers. In 1945, a new building was erected on the neighbouring island of Galindez, where 10 people could spend the winter. In 1977, Base F was renamed Faraday Station. The last large-scale addition to the station was carried out in 1980, when a 2-storey building was built onto the original structure. In February 1986, a memorandum was signed between Ukraine and England, according to which the English gave the station to Ukraine without compensation of any kind. Since then, the station has been called Akademik Vernadsky. This is the oldest of all operational stations on the territory of the Antarctic Peninsula, and it carefully preserves the memory of all the winter dwellers as well as all of the honoured guests that have spent time on it. In 1957, on the station was installed a device called Dobcon, which was able to measure the ozone layer. The hole in the ozone layer over the Antarctic was discovered in the early 80s as a result of the large differences in measurements found between the English stations Faraday and Halley. But after further research, it was established that there wasn't a hole in the direct meaning of the word, but that the level of ozone above the Antarctic was way below that of the norm. This equipment is numbered 31 and has been given a personal name, Daphne. To this day, it is a standard and best way of measuring the ozone layer in the world. Since 1957, winter dwellers have been carrying out geophysical experiments. As well as this, the station has made a series of unique and unprecedented in-depth observations relating to the region of the Antarctic Peninsula. All of the scientific observations are sent on a daily basis to the scientific bases in France and England. On the station, there is no concept of the working day and overtime. No one controls anybody else, and everyone unhurriedly carries out their duties, with no need to rush. In winter, 12 people work at the station, and every day passes steadily and in a relaxed fashion. However, the shooting of this film coincided with a seasonal shift change of scientists, and with a more intensive period of work being carried out by the scientists of the Ukrainian Antarctic expedition. So during these 3 weeks, life in the station was buzzing with activity. However, during the evenings, the station turned into a small and cosy hotel with music, a bar, billiards and a library. Regularly small parties took place. The birthday party of Dr. Alexandra Bakalnovskova will be remembered by everyone for a long time. The bar in the station is the only one in Antarctica. It was built by English carpenters who drank very large quantities of whiskey and who considered building the bar a more necessary and worthy task than redecorating the station as they were supposed to. A scandal erupted and they were sent straight back to Britain. However, from that time, guests would be drinking at the bar and fully appreciating the workmen's efforts. The bar contains a wide selection of souvenirs left by tourists, including a bra of a woman who had stayed at the station. Here, the annual International Day of Water has become famous for its craziness and fun.
Просто я гидролог с 25-летним стажем, и это удовольствие себе отказать не могу.
Вова, а ты в бабке?
Купайтесь в Антарктиде, будете всегда здоровы.
In Antarctica, you never stop being amazed by the contrasts of nature. Bare rocky islands next to an incredibly rich underwater world. Saltwater and freshwater icebergs, grey skies and deep blue ice. In complete silence, one can experience nature's music of shape and colour. It's worth remembering that walks around the Antarctic islands are not safe. The weather can change extremely fast, and there have been many cases of winter dwellers returning by boat from other islands who have had difficulty finding the station due to sudden storms or fog. When leaving the station, it's necessary to mark the route taken and to take a radio in order to maintain a connection with fellow workers. Observing the appropriate safety measures, a person on his own never strays further than the boundaries of the station. On the way to the island Petermann, which is situated 20 miles from the station Vernadsky, we unexpectedly come across a group of crab-eating seals. They had suddenly appeared on the base of an iceberg, and they gazed at us curiously, before amicably disappearing into the water, away on their own business. The old Argentinian station Faraday is situated on the island of Petermann. In the spring of 1991, 3 English winter dwellers, carrying out scientific investigations, weren't able to return to base. An unexpected thaw caught the scientists out as they skied back, and they're promptly carried away into the ocean on a block of ice which has split off from the land. In their journals they recorded the last moments of their lives. To this day, Antarctica remains the most ecologically clean region of the world, and the insignificant presence of man hasn't been able to influence the behaviour of the animals. Weddella seals, lazily relaxing and scratching their sides, are sincerely surprised by our appearance. Curious penguins called Adélie and Juntu swimming close to the station, openly ignoring the existence of the people close by. To the so-called ear cats, we offer the biggest threat to their peace and quiet. This part of the world will remain ecologically clean as long as man in Antarctica feels that he is a guest. The last warm days are in the second half of March. And yesterday's Antarctic summer, in the space of one night, can be replaced by today's winter. The sun hides behind the grey clouds, and the first snows begin to fall, which will then continue on for a further 250 days. Gradually, the straits and sounds freeze up, and all the islands vanish under a 2-metre layer of snow. For 8 months, winter dwellers will be cut off from the world, and the tourists will be expected to come no earlier than the next summer. One can talk about Antarctica forever, but it's better to visit just once, and it will be always remembered as one of the most incredible moments that you've ever had the fortune to experience.